Is the Kia Picanto the right car for you? Well, if you need one of the smallest, cheapest cars on the market, then it probably is, but there's more to this little nugget than meets the eye. Let me tell you. G'day, I'm Matt, and in this review we're checking out the Kia Picanto, which is one of Australia's most affordable and smallest cars in 2023. Now this one here is the hot hatch model, the GT, but there are some more affordable versions of the Picanto which you might want to find out about. I'll tell you more about them soon. If you're on a very tight budget for your new car, then you probably already know about the Kia Picanto, and it comes in a few different types. So the entry level is called the S, and you can get it as a manual or auto, and it's cheap no matter which one you buy. And then there's the GT line, which looks sportier but isn't any sportier to drive, and it has manual and auto available as well, both very cheap. And then there's this one. It's called the GT. It's the range topping version, and it has a bit more performance oriented elements to it. And it is actually properly fun to drive and still really cheap. You can get it for less than 23 grand drive away, and I think that's a bargain. No matter which version you choose, you're going to get an 8-inch touchscreen media system inside with wireless Apple CarPlay, wireless Android Auto, a reversing camera, there's cruise control as well, and every version comes with halogen headlights. Now if you step up to the GT line or GT, you also get LED daytime running lights, which I think add a little bit of extra flair to the look. Plus they get 16-inch alloy wheels, where the base model gets 14-inch steelies. It's probably the only car on the market with 14-inch wheels still on it. If you haven't seen it already, I've done a review of the MG3, which is probably the closest competitor to this car because it's small and it's cheap and it has a long warranty, but it doesn't have the same sort of safety credentials that the Picanto does. The other rival that you might want to think about, but probably haven't, is the Fiat 500. Now, if you can deal with the fact that it's only got 2 or 3 doors rather than 5 like a proper hatchback should, then it could be the right car for you because it's still very cheap, still very small, and has a little bit of Euro flair to it, even if it is getting pretty old now. Personally, I think the best alternative to this car is actually another Kia. It's the Kia Rio, but that's only if you need the extra space and you want the extra space and you can afford the extra outlay, because to get a really good Rio, you're gonna have to spend quite a bit more money. So, as it is, the Picanto GT is probably the pick of the Picanto range if you can deal with a manual. At less than 3.6 meters long, this is a very, very small car. So don't expect it to be too spacious on the inside, because it isn't. I'll show you in a sec. But if you live in a city like Sydney, for example, then it could be the exact right car for you because it is so small. Just make sure you don't need a big boot. Let me show you why. Obviously, you are buying a little car, so you should expect a little boot. And at 255 litres, this is a pretty compact cargo area. But the thing is, it's actually the shape of it that makes it the most awkward element in terms of the size, because it's got this really steep drop off and you have to really lift things up and over to go into the boot. But there are some very clever elements to the boot, including where the top tether mounts are if you do have a child seat. Because they're so high on the seat back, it means that you're not going to lose too much boot space with having straps getting in the way. That's very smart. I'm also amazed that they can fit a space saver spare wheel under the boot floor because, well, I don't really know how it fits. The interior of the Kia Picanto doesn't feel too cheap, and I think that's a credit to Kia's designers. Now, that's at least in the GT spec, which does have these nice red bits on the seats, this fake leather trim, and I think they look quite nice. They're pretty comfortable too. You've also got nice red stitching on the steering wheel with a fake leather hand grip, which is nice as well. It does feel pretty good. I mean, you got to remember how much you're paying for the car, and in the lower grade models, well, the S grade, it does feel a little bit more the price that you're paying. But there are nice elements to the cabin. Of course, you've got this big 8-inch touchscreen media system, wireless Apple CarPlay, wireless Android Auto. If you want sat-nav, too bad, you're just going to have to use your Maps app on your phone. Other controls are all very basic. There's no climate control, air conditioning, it's just a manual system, but it is an affordable car, so don't go too hard on it. Now, in terms of storage, this cabin is actually pretty damn smart, I would say. There's a few little options for storage. So My phone, for example, there's a little shelf here where I can store it. You can connect to a USB to keep it charged. There's no wireless charging, but that's not that big of a deal. There's another little cubby in front of these pop-out cup holders, which I really like. I think the fact that you can choose whether you want them to be cup holders or a bigger storage tray is appealing, especially if you like to carry a big wallet or a purse or something like that, then that could be handy for you. Also, in the GT line and GT grades, you get a little armrest with a covered bin in here. It's very small, but it does offer some extra storage. There's another bin underneath the handbrake as well. Bottle holders in the doors, a decent sized glove box for what is a tiny little car. And yeah, I think it's a pretty well presented and well packaged little car, at least in the front. Let's check out the back seat. I'm slightly bigger than average, 182 centimeters or 6 foot tall. This seat is set for my driving position. And yeah, it's pretty tight back here, if I'm honest. My knees are very hard up against the seat in front. At least I've got a lot of foot room and decent headroom as well. You will have to watch your head getting in and out if you are of the taller variety. Now, you're not going to fit 3 people across here comfortably. You can, there are 3 seat belts, but it's going to be a squish. Now, you can also fit ISOFIX child seats in the outboard seats. There's 3 top tether points as well, so if you have kids, that might be helpful for you. We managed to fit our child seat in here. We've got some footage of that. We've got forward facing 0 to 4 baby seat. So if you have a capsule that's a rearward facing one, it just means that the person in front is gonna be a little bit uncomfortable. They'll be pushed right up into the dashboard, but that's not unusual, especially for a car of this size. Now, in terms of amenities back here, you've got a map pocket. That's it. There's no rear vents, there's no charging, there's no door pockets, there's no center armrest or cup holders. You've got a map pocket. Hopefully that's enough for you. Under the bonnet of the Picanto range, there's a couple of different engine choices. The entry-level S and GT line models get a 4-cylinder 1.2 litre engine, whereas if you choose the GT model, you get a turbocharged 3-cylinder engine, and that turbo really does make a big difference. It adds 12 kilowatts and 50 Newton meters, so you really do feel it on the road. The big issue is that the turbo version is only available with a 5-speed manual, whereas you can choose the entry-level engine with a 5-speed manual or a 4-speed auto. Now, that 4-speed auto isn't terrific, but at least it's automatic, and for a lot of people that will be the decision maker when it comes to a city car like this. But I'd love to know what you think. Would you be able to live with a 5-speed manual? Hit me up in the comments and let me know. I reckon a turbocharged version with an automatic transmission would just change the game for the Picanto, but we'll see if that happens or not. Oh, all models are front-wheel drive only. The Picanto I'm driving isn't like the other models in the range. I've mentioned already that this is the GT grade, and it has obviously that turbocharged engine, which is considerably more lively and exciting than the engine in the other grades of the Picanto, the S and the GT line. But the other thing you need to know is that this car has a different suspension setup and different steering as well. So it's definitely tuned to feel more involving, more enthusiastic to drive than the other grades of Picanto. And if you're the sort of person who thinks that they like driving, then well, you probably got a manual license, so the GT might be the right car for you. But if you're the sort of person who just wants a little car like this to get around town and really wants an automatic, then you're gonna have to test drive the automatic version because it's kind of gutless. That said, this turbocharged manual version isn't gutless. I actually think it's pretty peppy. I also really like the way it sounds. That raspy character isn't going to be for everyone, but I actually think it's very exciting sounding for a car like this. I love 3-cylinder engines, so this is always going to appeal to me more than it might appeal to you. Some people think that they sound a bit gruff and uncultured and unrefined, but maybe that's a reflection of who I am. The shift action isn't too bad. I mean, it's a very long throw for the shift, but the clutch is light and the action itself is quite light as well. And the gearing is quite long, so, you know, you'll be in 3rd gear and you'll be at 100 k's an hour and thinking, oh, I should be in 5th. I guess that's a really good indicator of what this car is. It's a car you actually need to drive. So you will need to row through the gears a bit. You'll have to use your left leg as well as your right to drive it. And I really like that. Let's talk about the other versions of the Picanto before we talk about the GT when it comes to efficiency. So you've got the 4-cylinder versions. Between the manual and the auto, you're looking at between 5 and 5.8 litres per 100 Ks. Yes, the auto is that much thirstier. So if you are in the market for an automatic city car that happens to be a Picanto, expect to pay a little bit higher fuel price as a result of that. But the other thing you should know is that this turbocharged manual version of the car is very efficient. The claimed efficiency is 5.2 litres per 100 kilometres, and having done more than 500 kilometres in this car, a fair bit of commuting on the freeway and some urban driving like I'm doing today, well, I've seen 5.1 litres per 100 Ks in my actual fuel test. That's really impressive. While the Picanto does have some advanced safety technology, unlike some of its city car affordable rivals, namely the MG3 and Fiat 500, this car does have a 4-star ANCAP safety rating, and that was from 2017, and a lot has gotten stricter since those days. So it does have autonomous emergency braking and forward collision alert, but it doesn't have things that could be potentially life-saving, such as pedestrian detection or cyclist detection or junction detection, and nor does it have things like lane keeping assistance, blind spot monitoring, rear cross traffic alert, or rear autonomous emergency braking. And if those safety credentials are important to you, well, you're going to have to increase your budget quite a bit. But at least it's got a reversing camera, and there are 6 airbags inside, including coverage for the second row. If peace of mind is what you're after, then this car could seal the deal for you. It's got a 7-year unlimited kilometre warranty, 7 years of roadside assist, and up to 7 years of cap price servicing as well. Now, that'll depend on how many kilometres you do, because if you buy the turbo version, your servicing intervals are every 10,000 kilometres. So if you do more than average, then you're going to have to service it more often, and that means your cap price plan will run out quicker. But if you buy the non-turbo version, the intervals are every 15,000 kilometres, so you are getting a bit more leeway. Also, it's cheaper to service at an average of $407 over that 7-year or 7 service period, whereas this is $450 on average, and that is quite a bit of money for such a little cheap car. But tell me what you think. Is it affordable enough? The Kia Picanto could be the right car for you if you want something that's fun, that's funky, and even a little bit fast, at least this GT model. If you are on a strict budget, then the S and GT line models just don't have the same fun factor. And if you need an automatic, well, you can't get the GT. And so those things do stack up against this otherwise impressive tiny little hatchback. Tell us what you think in the comments section below. Would you choose a Kia Picanto? Would you choose something completely different? I'd love to know what you're thinking. And again, if you are still watching, thanks for doing so, and I'll see you in the next one.